Asia. Just thanking University of Victoria for inviting me to be here today. I'm inviting Sanghees Nation to be here today, and it's my great honor to be here for our chief, who could not be here today, and he sends his regrets. Siam, Siaya, Asiam Nostalicha, Thunasnes, Suqueliptin, Chisalayat Sadat, ʷəŋən, Haichka, Juansanea Techo, ʷəŋən Tango. Just translate, I'm introducing myself as Suqueliptin, and that is my traditional name. But my name is Norman Gary Sam, and I'm elected counselor for Sanghees Nation. I'm just welcoming you all to the traditional territories. As my granduncle said, I also acknowledge the lands that are important to the Saanich, Nisqualaqua, and Squamish, Nisqualaqua, and Sauk, and all of our many nations who gather here in ceremony and celebration. Haichka, Helen Nisqualaqua.
Asiam Ingus, o Chichas Squelikwan, Swat at the Mokhela, Tienok, Kalachiso, Quantus of Moxa, ʷəŋən, Swalaqua, so it's Haishkasiam. I thank my grandnephew for being that kind of a role model to the territory of ʷəŋən, Sanghees, Saanich, these kind of leaders that are upcoming to be looking after the territory and kind of doing this welcome to all of you for being here in the ceremony. Haishka Kelet. Yathal su Quinetta Squalawan, Kaleta Mok Sweat, Tenaquail, Yathal su Ashlet, Samok Sweat, Tenaquail, su Quinetta Stewiet, Kaleta Schmatiet, Swatstisia, Tsichum, to Sleket the Stewiet, to Ashlet, to Mok Sweat, Tenaquail, Tsichum.
Hi, Tabka. Swatstisia, Thanasna, Tanate Malachar. Hi, Tab, the Mochi Tatzel Namad, na Ice Quail, I see. If the Solhuenst, Massey, Haid, the Mug Solhuenst. I've said my traditional name is Swatstisia. English is, I always say it's not April, it's May. And I tell that to the little children, so they remember Grandma May. I just love to see everyone smile and have a good time for a very special occasion today, a beautiful occasion. Hi, Shiva. And I'm going to do a blessing for you, and in my language, I thanked everyone and the elders on board to be here today on a special occasion. And I'm going to do a blessing first in my language, this Hulkaminam, for 6-7 years of my first years of my life was only Hulkaminam. I never knew there was another language as English, so I'm going to speak to the Creator to send His blessings down to each and every one this important and beautiful day for you. And I always say I love you. It's so important for me to share that with you, because in my prayer and my love to you from my heart to your heart, for all the hard work that you do, every day and every night, taking care of each and every one that comes through these doors, and also for staff and faculty, president, and each and every one of you, in the First People's House. All the hard work you do, taking care of the babies that come. They come and then they got their wings and they're gone, flew back home. Haichka. Chunamix nask man say timana say to Saunders Spray, Slaughter's Day. Masi Haich, the title Siam, to the ice quail. Haishka the moki title namati etanas. Hakan lilam masi. Tichumit lalamet the moks of Weinst. Quamcums to the squalons mox quayakus. East to call nog. Slachen stoch with the hakan tamoch masi haitra. Xenich the gonan swimmel tamoch masi haitra. I praise and I thank the Creator for a beautiful day and a blessing for my dear ones here today, to give each and every one strength through prayer and blessing. I pray and I ask the Creator for a blessing for the elders, to give them a helping hand in each and every way and give them strength for taking care of family, and also for the staff and each and every one. I prayed and asked the Creator for a blessing. I praise and I thank the Creator for a blessing to send upon each and every one here today. Merci, titel siam, the hachen stiwil. Quam gumstis in scholo and muxquail, haishka. I praise and I thank the Creator for a blessing to keep your heart and mind strong each and every way. Haishka. Nimix nask man say to manas. Tis under spray slumps day. Haishka. I love you.
Siem schmatier. So tia thama kalet. Ja thal so jaya stal. Siaya so ubik. So jaya stal to so mok sweat the students, graduates. Kalet is dewey of the suchleket. So art of the squale. Art of the mok sweat and the quail. So tia thama haichka. Siaya. So called the Snawair, the Coast Salish. So the Lelams to eat First People's House. So called the Snawair, the Skaka, Sweshquallowan to Wheel to the Quail. Just we've been going through a lot of ceremonies here in the First People's House. This building is built in such a way of our old Coast Salish houses, where we used to have dirt floors, an open fire on one end and open fire on the other end. And our UVic have been working along with the Coast Salish, I guess what you call it is protocol, but it's a lot of our teachings of how we gather communities together when we have special ceremonies. So today we're doing this special gathering, and a lot of the protocol with our big, we've called them big houses with our open fires, with our cedar posts, with our openings for our fires. And our cedar posts are always a big part. Blankets are always a big part of our ceremonial gatherings. So we're going to be moving along with our part of our ceremony. And a lot of this, I think we've got our First Nations here that know a lot of the process, protocol, I guess we call it protocol, along with our big house gatherings. And a lot of it is, again, I go through a lot of repeating because there's a lot of newcomers coming in to be a part of these ceremonies and to be sharing a lot of our culture and spiritual part of our ceremonies. And a big part of it is what we call witnesses. And these witnesses are carriers to take something back home to their community and share with their community, share with their families. Because a lot of these kind of sharing, one day somebody else will be hosting a gathering and to share something like this with your community, and then they'll know how to go about with some of the things that any kind of ceremonies that we're having. So we're going to just start going with our witnesses that we've been doing for centuries, carriers of the event that's going to be happening today. Schmuck with it, le leiding te squeltium. I've been doing also a little bit of sharing with some of the witnesses that we have. My nephew, Abraham, is from the East Saanich Reserve, but he's also chairperson of our tribal school. So schmuck with it. See you, Thama Heitka. Taskinachen, goeie naam, stamet squaltium. Taskinachen, his native name, he's from Nanaimo. My late mother was from Nanaimo, but also Shell Beach. And we find out that we are related in some way because I am part Nanaimo too. So it's good to I've seen him before, and his name is so familiar to my late uncle in Taskinachen, Heiska. Miss Tanu, you're chosen as a witness carrier this evening. Lach Kanitsk, chosen as a witness carrier this evening. Siaya, so qualtus noise collector, so hawker, so lalamet, so lalamet sati, niece or tani, namenset, the hawk, the swift clations, so tatalena. Just again, sharing a lot of part of our culture. My late father, Sammy Sam, he's done a lot of this kind of speaking, but only in our cultural big houses where we had our dirt floor and open fires. Now I'm wearing his shoes to best I can to look after what he used to do. when families come to my house and say, we're going to need your voice. We need your voice. So then my dad used to always say, don't you ever say no to anybody. If people want your voice, you go and speak for that family. So I've been doing this for close to 3 decades now. But it's always a part of our culture to thank everybody that has showed up here. You know, you might have made rearrangements of your own schedule to be here and be a part of the ceremony today. So there's a lot of appreciation from our families, our hosts, just to see you here and being that kind of a support. Maybe you've traveled a bit, but we really thank you for being here and supporting the family. So, hi, guys. Been here for some time working with you, Vic, and I've been working with Rob Hancock for about a decade or something like that. So we know each other fairly well. Thanks, Rob.
Hi. Tanchi Kiowau, Rob Hancock and Sagasan. Hi, everybody. My name's Rob Hancock, and I'm Cree Métis from Treaty 8 territory on my mom's side, from the Monkman family, and English Canadian on my dad's, but I was born and raised, and I'm really grateful to be living and working here in the ʷəŋən territory. I'm also really grateful to have the honor of speaking on behalf of Marion Buller this afternoon. Marion Buller stands before you, humbly and respectfully, with the honor of being named the 12th Chancellor of the University of Victoria. Her grandparents were James and Rosina Butler and Harry and Gladys Mackenzie. Her parents were James and Jean Buller. Her brother is Edward Buller. Marion was born and raised in Toronto. She and her Buller family are members of the Mistoswasis Nehiwak, a Cree First Nation in Saskatchewan. Marion came to this territory in 1973 as a visitor. She fell in love with the beauty of this territory and stayed as a guest. Marion was twice a student here at UVic. She graduated with her Bachelor of Arts degree and then her Bachelor of Laws degree. So she knows the importance of taking good care of our students. Marion worked as a lawyer, a judge, and then as Chief Commissioner for the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Throughout her career, she has confronted the effects of colonization with courage and a deep commitment for making change. She is perhaps too modest about her many accomplishments, but here are 2 examples. As Chief Commissioner, Marion called out the Canadian government for committing genocide against Indigenous people, and she established and then presided in the first Indigenous courts. She has changed the lives of many of our people and for the better. Marion wishes to continue her work against colonization here at UVic. She says that there is much work to do and that she will do this work with a good heart, a good mind, and a generous spirit. Marion Buller is seeking your permission to work on your territory.
Asiam Nistelicha, Asiam Dr. Hancock, and Haichka, for being the voice on behalf of the university, and Haichka to Chancellor Marion Buller for standing up in the First People's House and asking permission to the ʷəŋən people to do the land, to live, work, and play. On behalf of Hiwas, Hakulak, Chislea Tsarat, ʷəŋən, my chief, Ron Sam, grant you permission to work and live and play on these lands, to continue your courageous efforts in reconciliation, and to uphold the sacredity of the ceremony you're participating in today. Haichika Hela.
RCM English Stikwan. So see a tala collective squalum to Artlet. Nan and Steven Hakwalak, Chief of ʷəŋən. So see a tala collect. I thank my grandnephew and my niece. My niece works here. Seems like a Sam day today. My grandnephew, Gary Sam, my niece, Diane Sam, for being that models again from the ʷəŋən for standing here, being that kind of support role for your community. You know, I was mentioning earlier, we've got young people that are growing up into these kind of parts of looking after your own community. So this is a big role for how she looks after some of her, we call it her people too, because she works with UVic and the protocol of Coast Salish way. So my niece has big shoes to wear too. So I thank them again once more for doing this for our ceremony. Aishka Hela. Oh, the witnesses?
Yeah, we'll call the witnesses to respond.
Just again going along with a lot of our Coast Salish ways of how we go about looking after communities or ceremonies. So again, I mentioned earlier how we go about with witnesses, witness carriers, because we don't really send out anything and like faxing all this stuff to other communities. So again, our witnesses are carriers. They take it home to their communities and share what ceremonies happened. So now I'm going to call upon all our witnesses that we went through earlier to kind of come up and share appreciation or whatever they'd like to lay down on the floor to the ceremony that just happened. So we can get our witnesses to come forward, please. You can use a mic. Use a mic.
Gayasaka. My name is Merle Alexander. I'm also, my hereditary chief's name is Lachachnitz, and it's my honor and privilege to be with you and recognize this amazing ceremony. It's following on it's the second time and a very proud moment to be able to sort of see first the president and now the chancellor follow appropriate the ʷəŋən Wasanage protocol or follow their legal orders. And this is a place that, in some ways, was built to uplift that jurisdiction. It's a place where we welcomed the first GID and JD students some 4 years ago. And it's a place that is built upon the fact that there are laws and living legal orders in these lands. So it's with that lens that I see what a honorable new protocol that UVic is following and asking permission. I see it in some ways through different lenses because, of course, I'm also on the UVic Board of Governors, and I also see it as a lawyer, and I also see it as someone who is at the very infancy of taking on a hereditary chief's role in my own communities. So I see it through us changing our own governance here at UVic. I see it through this uplifting of Indigenous legal orders in the Canadian legal system. And I also see it as the very beginning of an education for all of us, including myself, to be following as not just a practice, but something that is truly just attorning to the legal system which is here before before all of us, because I too am a guest, a guest of these territories. As a witness, there's much to take home, I guess, in that setting. But like what I think resonates with me is that it brings honor to UVic to abide by the legal system that was here before us. And for that'll be part of the story that I take home to my own community, and also to the legal community that many of us belong to, including our new chancellor. So thank you very much for having me participate in this. And somehow I fought my way to the front to speak first.
Ait Gwacho. Techel Nangit. Ait Gahela Nistjelacha. Ait Gahela to the sage. Smak with it in the snare. Shalas in the Kusenich. Shalas in the sail. I just saying thank you for being here, and thank you to my family and my uncles, my cousins, and my friends here. And I just want to thank you all for having me and having me stand up and talk in our cultural ways here. Thank you. It's really nice to see. It's that we're following our protocols here in Coast Salish territory. I appreciate that so much. And congratulations. And thank you for coming forward and asking the permission. That's again following cultural protocols of this house, this sacred house that we're in today. And yes, and thank you for having me again. I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks, Shka.
Iets te boren al tenniseledig. En te pa mana somewhat stemig. Iets with I'll siaya. Just saying in our language, it's, you know, like from Nanaimo, and my mother is from Nanaimo. Her name was Somquat. And my name is Tiskinachan, which is a Snemoch name. And I'd just like to say greetings to all the elders first, you know, which is important in our culture, to greet our elders and acknowledge them first. And it's a part of all of our cultures on the West Coast here. And just like to say congratulations to Marion on this monumental day. And my wife Sandra and I did the hood design for her outfit. And it's Sandra. Want to stand up? And my mother gave her a name, Thalt Talada, which means the maker of beautiful things, and that's her name. And she had a gift of giving these names coming to her. And it's really good to see our cultural ways come back. Like, I was born in 1950, and before I was born, my grandfather knew who I was, and he knew what I was going to be, and he knew my Indian name before I was born. And our people way back in the days had different gifts that they had. And that was one of his gifts. Like he was like a seer. And I just thought I'd mention that today, you know. And it's so wonderful to see the Hulkamanum people being acknowledged in all the areas that we're from. And I'd just like to say a thank you to all my relatives here, because we're all related. And I just want to say Heit Seipka to everybody. Thank you to everybody. And my mother and my grandfather taught me, like, when you're speaking to a lot of people, you always say Heit Seipka, and you never say Heitchka to a crowd, because you're only speaking to one person. And it was a great insult and a shame for your family if you got up and spoke and said Heitchka. And in Nanaimo, I hear a lot of speakers now, they say Heitchka CM when they're looking at everybody. And you have to say like Heit Seipka. In the Hulkamanum, it's a proper way to say it. And I just thought I'd mention that today, just saying it in a good way, you know. Okay. Okay. You know what?
Tansi. Mushomok mina kokomok tapwe ni naskamun. I'm not from this territory, and so I would like to thank the elders and the speaker for giving me permission to speak to you today about my sister. Many of the things I could say, I would never say. But I love her. What she has done so far in her life has been impressive. But the path ahead for her is going to be a challenge that I know she can succeed at, because she has never failed in her life. This place is a good place for her. Not just this house, but this university. It has been, in my mind, at the forefront of bringing our people to a point where they can branch out to careers that were closed to us for so long. When I was going to university, way, way back, there were only 7 of us in Canada. That changed when I came here. This may be 10, 15 years ago. I and some others were invited to watch the graduating class of Aboriginal students be honored here. There were 3 rows. Those of us who had been way, way back so lonely, we were crying, because we saw this as a way for our people not to lose who we are, but to be able to step into another world with the confidence and strength that is needed. So, Marion, your work is just beginning. Next time I come, I'd like to see 5 rows of our people. Thank you.
So Katina, so Nis Lakat Tewat, I unsqual, so after collectors a Marion, so it's here tall as him. Again, part of our culture with the Coast Salish, we asked our witnesses to come forward and share. This is a big thing for part of our culture is when our witnesses are able to share something, whatever the gathering is. There's always a sharing of appreciation or thanking the hosts of what they've been doing today. And I want to thank all our witnesses again for coming forward and sharing. Hi, Rob.
So at this time, I draw your attention to the reconciliation paddle. 3 cedar paddles were commissioned by UVic when we hosted the National Building Reconciliation Forum in 2019. The vision for the paddles was to have 3 artists to represent Coast Salish canoe teachings. The paddles symbolize the value of paddling together and represent the need for post-secondary institutions to work together to honor truth and reconciliation. The paddles and a walking stick were presented to Algoma University, the hosts of the 5th annual National Building Reconciliation Forum. These paddles symbolize our connections to the past, the present, and the future. This paddle represents the future and was carved and painted by 2 former UVic students, Carver Everson, who's Comox and Kwakwaka'wakw, and Margaret August, who's from Shuswap First Nation. This paddle is a constant reminder of UVic's commitment to truth and reconciliation. The stand for the paddle was created by Carrie Newman, who's Kwakwaka'wakw and Stalo, who is the Impact Chair in Indigenous Art Practices in the Faculty of Fine Arts. So thank you to Carver, to Margaret, and to Carrie for the reconciliation paddle and stand. So I'd like to call upon Dr. Cedric Littlewood, the University Orator, who will read the citation prepared for Marion Buller.
Do no harm, her grandfather told the young lawyer Marion Buller, who would go on to become the first First Nations woman to be appointed as judge in British Columbia. Yet every day, the First Nations file past Canada's judicial benches in disproportionate number. Indigenous women account for nearly half the population of federal women's prisons, when the Indigenous population of Canada is less than 1 in 20. Such a system of justice is re-traumatizing the traumatized. It harms. So what's a judge to do? In 2006, Marion Buller established and presided in what are now called Indigenous courts and provided the foundation for the Aboriginal Family Healing Court conferences that incorporate traditional restorative justice principles into sentencing proceedings and child protection matters. Over a long and distinguished career as a legal scholar, Marion Buller has published many reports and articles dealing with Aboriginal rights and legal services for First Nations in BC. She has served as both director and president of the Indigenous Bar Association. She has been a member of BC's Law Courts Education Society, the province's Law Foundation, and the BC Police Commission. From 2016 to 19, she was the Chief Commissioner for the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Holder of UVic degrees in anthropology and law, Marion Buller returns to her university now as its titular head and as the face of the university as it grants degrees. I asked her what we, parents and graduating students, should read in that face at convocation, and she replied, "The joy of learning." In all our education and re-education, let us find joy.
Thank you, Dr. Littlewood. I would now like to invite Her Honor, the Honorable Janet Austin, Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, to bring greetings.
Thank you, Rob. Haitsepa, everyone. Aitsquaichel, Stelacha, Aikwanas, Kwanangahela. Good day, dear friends. It's really wonderful to be among you today, and I do mean that so very sincerely. Ananuhilak nushkwelakwans atische. I feel very proud of the work that is done all together, and I also offer my apologies for my dismal pronunciation. As always, I wish to acknowledge the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich, upon whose traditional territory we gather today, and whom I thank for the privilege of living and working on these lands. Thanks also to Councillor Norman Gary Sam, Sukwe Lecton, for the gift of a traditional welcome, and to May Sam, of course, Elder May Sam, for her traditional blessing. And of course to Al Sam for presiding as our speaker today. The land acknowledgement, I'm really pleased and proud to see that it is being really adopted very broadly in British Columbia. And that's important. But I also think it's important that we think about what it means to us personally. And so I will share with you that for me, I'm a 7th generation Canadian. My ancestors came to Nova Scotia during the Scottish clearances when their lands were taken away by the aristocracy. And they found much success and happiness here in Canada. But I recognize that much of the success that my family enjoyed and that I myself have enjoyed has come at the expense of Indigenous peoples. And that's why I feel a special responsibility as Lieutenant Governor to use my platform to be a visible and a vocal advocate for the full realization of reconciliation in all its dimensions. Haitsepa. It gives me enormous pleasure to conduct or to participate in the installation of Judge Marion Buller to the office of Chancellor of the University. I have long admired Marion Buller, her service as the first female Indigenous provincial court judge, her vision in establishing the Indigenous Courts and Aboriginal Family Healing Conference, incorporating restorative justice and traditional healing practices into criminal proceedings. Her leadership of the Indigenous Bar Association, the Law Foundation, the BC Police Commission, and many, many other contributions throughout a life of public service. But as someone who has spent much of my professional and volunteer life as an advocate for women's safety and equality, I want particularly to honor her service as Chief Commissioner into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The national inquiry that she led was unprecedented in its size and scope, and it laid bare for all to see the pervasive violence and abuse experienced by Indigenous women and girls who are at significantly higher risk of violence than non-Indigenous peoples. Her work was an inspiration to all, and it was certainly an inspiration to me. At the time of the report's release, I pledged to use my privilege and my platform as Lieutenant Governor to champion the report's calls for justice. And Judge Buller, I want you to know that my commitment continues undiminished, and no matter where life takes me, I will always be a visible and vocal advocate for an end to the violence perpetrated against Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people, and for the reforms required to ensure their enduring safety and their full and equal participation in all dimensions of Canadian society. To the Chancellor's Search Committee, I'm sure there are a few of you here, I want to say very well done. You have selected a leader who truly embodies the values of the university and will build on the truly splendid work of Chancellor Emeritus Sheila Rogers. Judge Buller has been tireless in her search for a better world for Indigenous peoples and indeed for all peoples. She has been a champion for better, fairer, more effective ways to find and to administer justice. And it is clear to me that she will bring that same spirit and drive in service to the university and all its ambitions for building a civil and sustainable society that is more hopeful, more equal, more just for all its citizens. Judge Buller, if you would join me now, we will proceed with the official part of our ceremony today. Marion Buller, you are about to be formally installed as the 12th Chancellor of the University of Victoria. In this important role, you act as the highest authority at this institution as set forth in both the traditions of the Academy and the laws of the land. It is now your duty to oversee, preserve, and nurture this university's place and reputation on behalf of myself as representative of the Crown in British Columbia, and on behalf of my ministers and all citizens of this province, on behalf of your academic colleagues, and for the betterment of all members of the university, and on behalf of all assembled here today. These weighty responsibilities have been passed to you and your faculty at the University of Victoria as prescribed by this institution's charter and other enacted legislation. You are now the leader of a unique and dynamic academic community. It is you, as Chancellor, who will represent the University of Victoria and act to embody its public presence throughout British Columbia, Canada, and the world. At this time, I will administer the oath of office. Marion Buller, please repeat after me as we recite the oath. I, Marion Buller,
I, Marion Buller,
do accept the office of Chancellor with all its duties and privileges.
I do accept the office of Chancellor with all its duties and privileges.
I solemnly vow and do now pledge myself before this assembly
I solemnly vow and do now pledge myself before this assembly
to perform the duties of Chancellor of the University of Victoria
to perform the duties of the Chancellor of the University of Victoria
as prescribed by law and statute,
as prescribed by law and statute,
and at all times to promote the welfare of this institution.
and at all times to promote the welfare of this institution.
As the representative in the province of British Columbia of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, I install you, Marion Buller, as the 12th Chancellor of the University of Victoria, and I'm honored to offer you my personal support in your new role as Chancellor. Friends, I present to you Chancellor Marion Buller, and I thank you all for your presence here to witness this ceremony.
Thank you, Your Honor. I now call upon Councillor Gary Sam from Songhees Nation and Chancellor Emerita Sheila Rogers to assist Chancellor Marion Buller in her robes of office and present her with a hood. Please also welcome Eugene Sam and Christine Sam, who will offer an honor song.
the Kwangan. Good evening, or good afternoon, everybody, not evening. I'd like to thank UVic for inviting my sister and I to be here in celebration for our new Chancellor today. And just wanted to give a quick explanation of the song that we just sang. We call that song our women's song, our girls' song. And that's a song that we use to honor the women in our life. And we felt it was an appropriate song to use to help give our blessings and our honor to our new Chancellor of the University of Victoria. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you here today for being here to witness this take place at the time. Aitabka.
Thank you to Eugene and Christine for the song and for sharing the explanation of it and for being here and answering our invitation. Thank you for supporting the work that's being done here today. Aitlelam and the Good family from Snuneymuxw First Nation were commissioned by the University of Victoria to create a ceremonial hood with traditional Coast Salish art for the installation of Chancellor Marion Buller, in the same style that was used for the hood that was created and presented to President Kevin Hall in September 2021. The Chancellor's hood is a collaboration between fashion designer Sandra Good, Thultalada, with artwork by master Coast Salish artist and hereditary chief William Good, Susquehannock, and their son W. Joel Good. The hood's colors were chosen to represent the Chancellor's colors, purple and gold. The artwork is a supernatural eagle by William Good and eagle feathers by Joel Good. In Coast Salish teachings, the supernatural eagle is the messenger, carrying knowledge and prayers back and forth between the heavens and the earth, and imparts the vision and wisdom to guide one's journey. The 4 feathers were chosen to honor Marion's Cree heritage. The waves in the piece speak to the water, which is also a life-giving force, but the waves are smooth to ensure a smooth tenure at the university. These merged symbols are designed to represent the alignment and the relationship between the president and the chancellor who work together at UVic, but also to represent the blending of Cree culture and heritage with Coast Salish. Incorporating traditional Coast Salish art and history connects UVic to the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the land, water, and air, and the life cycle of the ancient knowledge of the past being brought into the future. So thank you to Aitlelam and the Good family for the creation of this beautiful hood. So I'll now call upon Dr. David Zussman, Chair of the Board of Governors, to offer some remarks, please.
Good afternoon. What an honor it is to be here with you today to welcome our esteemed new Chancellor on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen peoples on which UVic stands. I wish to acknowledge the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich peoples whose historical relationship with the land continues to this day. My name is David Zussman, and I'm the chair of the Board of Governors of the University of Victoria. When Marion agreed to accept the role of Chancellor, I had a great confidence that this was a person that would act as a good steward and ambassador for the university. And already in this role, I am so delighted to see her deep engagement with the UVic community, from its governing bodies to the students who we are here to serve. Marion's passion for education and her ability to see the meaningful connection between education and equity for all will serve this institution and the values we espouse extremely well. Her role here will also serve as a guidepost for UVic to continue to do the important work of decolonization as a necessary part of working towards reconciliation. I'm so delighted to welcome you, Marion, as a respected scholar, judge, and UVic alumna. Thank you for returning to UVic and for your willingness to give back to this place. We are so pleased to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zussman. Unfortunately, President Kevin Hall is not able to be with us here in person, but he has sent greetings by video, which we will watch now.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Kevin Hall, and I have the privilege of being the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Victoria. I'd like to begin by recognizing land and language, and I acknowledge with respect the ʷəŋən peoples on whose traditional territories the University of Victoria stands, and the Songhees, the Esquimalt, and ʷəŋən people, whose historical relationship with the land continues to this day. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I personally pledge to walk the path to reconciliation together. I'm really sorry I couldn't be here with you in person today, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to extend a warm welcome on behalf of the university to everyone who has come to First Peoples House today. We've come together for a very special and important occasion to welcome Marion Buller to ʷəŋən territory according to Coast Salish protocol, and to officially install her as UVic's 12th Chancellor. I was so moved and humbled to be welcomed and installed in this way just last fall, and I know this ceremony will start Marion's work as UVic's Chancellor off in a good way. Marion, we're so thrilled and honored that you agreed to become the University of Victoria's Chancellor. I admire and hold you in esteem for so many reasons, many of which have been shared by other speakers already today. Foremost is your determination to seek justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Your voice has been crucial in surfacing truth for those whose voices were taken away. I want you to know that at this university, we will always support you as you direct your energy, passion, and integrity in pursuit of truth, justice, and a better world. I'm struck and encouraged by your self-described willingness to think outside the box in seeking new ways to tackle long-standing problems in society. Marion, your life's journey and our life's journey are coming together at a critical time. At UVic, we embrace the framework of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the BC Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People Act. We're committed to truth, respect, and reconciliation, and most importantly, to our responsibilities in this process. This university is ready to have difficult conversations about what we value and prioritize as an institution and how to contribute in a good and meaningful way to decolonization, reconciliation, and self-determination for Indigenous peoples, especially the local nations with whom we have our closest relationship. We're ready to listen, to learn, and to be open to new ways of thinking and doing as we inspire to embed Indigenous principles and Indigenous-led scholarship into the fabric of our university. As Chancellor, I'll be looking to you for sound advice and inspiration as we walk this path together. And I encourage you to always hold me accountable for my commitments. Thanks for sharing your strength, leadership, and passion in guiding our direction as a university. You're going to make an amazing and enduring impact as our university's Chancellor. Aichka.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. I now have the honor of calling upon Chancellor Marion Buller to deliver her address.
Thank you very much, Rob. For the life of me, I can't remember the composer of the song that says, "You can keep your hat on." Thank you, Joe Cocker. So I will. Thank you. Let me begin with an acknowledgement of respect for the ʷəŋən peoples, upon whose traditional territory our university stands, as well as the Songhees, Esquimalt, and ʷəŋən people, whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day and whose spirits join us. We are honored to be in the presence of our circle of elders. Thank you for being with us. Your presence here ties us to our past, informs our present, and you carry our community forward to a future grounded in wisdom, truth, and tradition. With your permission given, I will work here with a good mind, a good heart, and I hope a very generous spirit. May thank you for starting us in a good way today. Welcome also to our very special guests, Janet Austin, thank you for your kind words, our university executive, our board of governors, faculty, staff, and students. Also, a special welcome to, and thank you, of course, to my family and friends, many of whom are here in my cheering section over here, and many of whom have traveled long distances to get here. Thank you. It would be impossible to begin without gratefully acknowledging our outgoing Chancellor, Sheila Rogers. I'm such a big fan. We owe Sheila a great deal of gratitude for hearing the pleas of our students to decolonize our university practices, evidenced in changes she made to our convocation ceremonies, just as an example, but also for her championing the cause of mental health, including and especially that of our students. And she did so in such difficult times. The vital work Sheila began here is something I commit to carrying forward. I want to pause for a moment and extend my gratitude to the members of the university secretary's staff who've worked really hard and very carefully to make sure that this whole ceremony has occurred seamlessly and according to tradition. So thank you all very much. As a member of the Mistawasis Nehewak, a Cree First Nation in Saskatchewan, as a person living in this country that we call Canada, pardon me. I have to name our way of doing things. I'll get it. I have to name all my relations. And I've been so worried that I'd leave someone out. So, also as an alumna of this university, and as, okay, there are 10 of them, sister, sister-in-law, stepmother, mother-in-law, cousin, niece, auntie, great-auntie, grandma, and friend. I did it. Oh, the worst part's over now. I got all my relations, and in our tradition, that's very important. Okay. I stand before you as living proof of what real educators can do. When I finished my undergraduate degree here in 1975, I didn't even think about going to law school. It took me 10 years to figure out that law school might be an option for me. I thought when I entered law school here in the mid-90s that after I graduated, I'd go back to the private sector. But in my first year criminal law class, Professor Keith Jobson lit a fire in me. He forever altered my life's path. I knew in that moment I belonged in a courtroom. Thank you, Professor Jobson. I never imagined that years later, in 1984, I would become the first First Nations judge, First Nations woman appointed as a judge in any court in British Columbia. And I was only the second first woman judge in Canada. That was 1994. My work and my convictions in support of Indigenous rights led to the creation of this province's Indigenous courts in 2006, a court process centered around doing the right thing, healing trauma in culturally appropriate ways, rather than punishing the person for the impacts of colonization on them and for them being misunderstood. This was once a novel approach, but it is one grounded in relationships and community instead of isolation. I am proud to say that the Indigenous courts continue to this day, thanks to the dedication of elders, judges, lawyers, and court workers, some of whom are here today. Thank you, Mabel. Thank you, Kathy. As many of you know, my journey included leading the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. It was the most difficult task that I have ever undertaken in my life, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I'm very proud to say there are some members of the very wonderful National Inquiry staff here today. Thank you for coming. Thank you. The truths we heard from families and survivors left me, Canadians, and people around the world in tears. Our families and survivors' courage and resilience also inspired me, making it clear that real change in our communities is indeed possible. And it is that hope for change, that willingness to work for change, that has brought me here today. And you know, as you have bestowed upon me this great honor, I am a woman both humbled and eager to accept the challenges placed before me. In my heart and in my mind, I have never been interested in what is easy, but rather what is just, true, and compassionate. I've never really been good at coloring within the lines. This university's work in developing relationships with Indigenous communities, to decolonize our practices, to shift our paradigms of understanding, and realize our vision for the future has only just begun. But we have our work cut out for us. You know, though, when we start with open hearts and open minds, we prime ourselves for success. And this is how I intend to approach academic programming and policy, ensuring they are guided by principles of justice, compassion, truth, and by a full and fearless understanding of our true histories. As Chancellor of this venerable, but not too old, institution, this is my duty. It is also my sincere belief that we must nurture our alumni family, to care for our extended academic community, both here and in far-off places. Indeed, the notion of community in these polarizing times has been all too fleeting luxury in an increasing solitary and lonely world. I believe that when our graduates cross our convocation floor, it shouldn't mark the end of academic life, but rather an induction into a great family of learners. We must stay close and we must stay in touch. It is the hope of every teacher that our students leave our campus equipped with the best tools for success. One of these tools, in my mind anyway, is literacy. Literacy matters because words matter. Words become stories. Stories tell us who we are. Tell us who we are as groups. Tell us who we are as individuals, as professionals, as citizens. Stories inform our truth. Words become our beliefs and our behaviors, which in turn have the power to make us grow, or conversely, we know that some stories can keep us locked away. As access to post-secondary education is afforded to fewer and fewer among us, literacy must transcend. It is the duty of every person in this room, every person watching, to transmit your literacy in all of its various forms, whether it's conventional reading and writing, or whether it's storytelling, or the language of kindness, or of compassion. It could be the literacy of decency or of traditional ways of knowing. Let us recommit to sharing literacy. In short, let us all be teachers. It is the birthright of every person in these shared nations we call Canada to have the freedom and the dignity to shine brightly. And it is the role of each and every one of us as mentors, leaders, colleagues, to light these flames, to warm our university family, our wider community and its peoples, and to keep our knowledge and hope alive. Because perhaps now, more than ever before, we need both knowledge and hope. So travelers, have safe trips home. Thank you all. Hayat Sepa, I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that, Miigwech, Masicho, Marcy, Nakermeek. Thank you all.
Part of our Coast Salish ways. We have so many different gatherings and ceremonies year-round. The host, whoever hosting a gathering, when it comes to concluding a ceremony, the host always has like little gifts for families who have made it, communities who have made it traveling this way to share a part of the ceremony. So our families just making their way around just for a few little gifts. Yeah, Colette so it on Stahil all up so what inamet. So Lelmet swesh qualawan is a wheel to Yais tall, Yais tail it. So it on Stahil all up Colette. See much qualawan Colette to all met stall. So Lelmet the swesh qualawan so wheel. There's a lot of thanks again to all of you once more for being here to share this ceremony, the transition of our Chancellor. And it's always nice to see our Lieutenant Governor, Janet, for being here. She's been a part of ceremonies that have been coming up, so we really want to always appreciate her appearance and attendance to the ceremony. And Ed, thank you for being here for sharing this part of the ceremony, a special ceremony. And the good family from Nanaimo, so Tia Tala, Thimach Qualam, and Quinet, to Arthur, to Lelamet. So, we'll make it our conclusion to our ceremony this evening, and so I can ask Eugene and Christine to do a prayer for our lunch.
It's always an honor to be able to step forward and just say a small prayer to set in place for each and every one of us. It was a great honor to be able to learn from our grandmother, to be able to how to pray and sing from such a young age. And I'm pretty sure our mom sang with us all the time in her womb, so it's just kind of another singing all the time. The song we're going to offer for you today, we have learned from our elder in Duncan, Ray Peters, but the song was taught to us by our elder that lives with us on Songhees now. Her name is Del Dick, and this is a group we sing for. So it's a high honor to be able to continue to keep learning from all of our grandmothers, all our aunties, sisters. You know that long list you're talking about? It's so good to see the woman as leadership, and it's really good to see men and women work together. And I love working with my brothers over here. We sing all the time. So Haitchka again, and this is the prayer song for our group.
RCM, to take one.